Well, Glenn, here we are again. It's a follow-up interview that a lot of people have been requesting, and I have probably 30 or 40 questions here, and we'll go through the questions and hopefully we can cover most of them. So, how has it been for you since the tapes were released? How's the community been, the Yelm community as a whole, been for you?
Just about the same as ever. I've had a few of the old timers that thought I did a good thing, and so we're life goes on.
Yeah.
No matter what happens, my life hasn't changed at all.
You don't have any regrets from what you're doing?
No, I'm a happy guy.
Yeah.
I enjoy life, and that was part of it.
I want to start off with some of the responses that we've had from the R.S.E people,
All right.
particularly from Jay-Z staff members. And one comment that I want you to have a look at is what James Flick had to say. He questioned why it took you 17 years to speak out.
Well, I have told these stories for 17 years to people that would listen, and this was the first time it came out on tape. He just probably hadn't talked to the right people.
Yeah. He also questions why it was warranted on the front page of the Nisqually Valley News.
You just never know what the paper's going to do, what they consider to be good news or bad news or newsworthy to go on the front page. I've found that out through the years. I've done lots of things, and I built a float for the chamber, and that ended up on the front page, which I didn't expect. So you just never know what's going to be there.
Right.
Yeah.
Going to mention the Tahoma Terra developers and their troubles with Jay-Z Night with their development.
Right.
And
well, the trouble with Jay-Z Night is not just them. It's every developer in our town and anybody that wants to do business in our town. She's going to be a problem for them. And that could chase off business for our town. So it's not just those guys.
Right. It seems they're going to actually, in the city too, I hear Ron Harding is not too happy with what the judgments that have been made.
Right. There's going to be an appeal, and I'm not involved in a lot of that process, so I don't know exactly how it's going to happen and when and where, but it will happen. So.
Where did the idea of the tank come from? Any ideas on that?
I was working for Jay-Z at the time that tank came into, it was just big secret meetings between Don Marshall, Jeff Marshall, and Mike Alt. They did all of the work on it and kept it very, very secret. I don't know who came up with the idea, and I have no idea how it came about. But as we know, it developed into something really huge. So, and I don't know if they still use it. I'm pretty sure they do. Yes, they actually
used it several weeks ago.
Yeah, I've heard
they had a wine ceremony too, several wine ceremonies.
Okay, yeah. So.
What do you know of it being rigged? Because what we've been told by former staff members is that it's actually rigged. Doorways are opened for letting selected people through. What did you know?
When I was there, it was not rigged as far as you couldn't talk to anybody that was in the tank and doing their thing. You know, Ramtha would talk to those people and tell them to turn around or do something. But if it progressed to being open to certain people, I don't see why it wouldn't. You know, because there has to be an example that always makes it to let other people know that they can do it also. So I wouldn't be surprised.
There's also a question about Tuhumo. I'll just read you the question. Wasn't it you, Glenn, that had the story of Ramtha appreciating the naked young man sitting outside in the cold? That's
yes. Ramtha would tell people to just pull their sweats off and leave their underwear and skivvies on. Well, he mistook it and was out in all his glory, and he had a big personality, and we went around a whole bunch of times looking at that personality and standing in front of him and telling people to breathe and to do this, and caught several glimpses of looking down at this gentleman.
Really?
And then we'd go back around and end up back in front of him. So it was trying to be very Ramtha was trying to be very discreet, but I was there.
Do you know if Tuhumo was ever, for viewers, Tuhumo is an ancient mind over matter discipline where you can stay warm below freezing, naked, melt the snow around you, and
well, that's a story we heard.
Yeah.
Don't know whether anybody's ever. I actually, that discipline I would use. I would take that, whatever Ramtha would say, and try to use that energy from my center to take it out to my fingertips and toes, and I could stay warm that way, but I'm pretty tolerant of cold, so I thought, I didn't know whether I was doing that or I was, because even now I don't even have to think about it. I stay pretty warm in cold weather.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of, this reminds me, that was from the book, The Teachings of the Masters of the Middle East, those 5 books by Baird Spalding.
That's right, Masters of the Far East.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I was, after I got out of the school, I was listening to some New Age people talking about that. And this guy knew Baird Spalding, and his father or grandfather had gone to India and told him about these things, and he wrote the first book and then made up the other 4. So Baird Spalding actually had never been to India, never saw any of those things. It was a complete fake, yet those were told to the people in school that they were as close to what you could do with your body as anything, and yet they were done. Yeah. They were made up by a guy. So apparently the great master didn't know that. Ramtha.
Was that practice ever done in the snow? Do you remember?
No, as far as I went out there, I never saw anybody do it in the snow. And I took a group of young people. There was several kids in it, and they lasted about 15 minutes before they were done and wanted to go in. So, and it was only like a 40-degree night. So it has to be. You have to have that discipline and want to be there before you can. And I saw a lot of people suffer with cold even when they were doing that. It was hard on them.
I'm going to jump around a bit, talking about suffering, because of dedication to the disciplines in mind over matter. Did you, during your time as staff member, see people suffering, like actually end up hurt there? You mentioned a tank a few times, I think last time.
Yeah, there was several times that I would open the door and take people out of the tank that were sobbing so hard that I thought they were going to absolutely lose their mind, and I would hold them, bring them out, and set them down and calm them down, and because they were in such a state of fear and I don't know, there's claustrophobia, whatever it might be, but to be blindfolded and jostled around with that many people, it was hard on a lot of people. I saw them in dire straits, so I took it on myself to open the door and bring them out.
During my time, there were children allowed to be in the tank at the same time the adults were in.
Really?
I remember helping a little child. I still to this day don't know if it was a little girl, a little boy.
Right.
They were probably 8, 9 years old, and I held them for a while until I called for a staff member. But in your time, were there children? I can't remember.
I did not see any children put in there, ever. It was always adults.
Okay. There's a question here. Were you aware of books purposefully given to J.Z. Knight to see if they would become the next teaching?
No, I'm not aware of that. There's some people that accuse me of being sneaky and sneaking around in her bedroom, and it was not like that at all. I did not look in anything that I wasn't supposed to. I am a contractor and I respect other people's property, and I was working on her apartment when I tripped over the book, kicked it, and looked to see if I'd broken anything or hurt anything. That's when I saw the books. It was not like I was sneaking around in her bedroom to find anything.
That's what.
And those books. Now I've heard one woman told me about a book that she had that Ramtha came out and talked about the witch doctors that became the prey and became this and that. And she said that was a book she had read, and it was completely out of print, and didn't know how J.Z. had found that to be able to quote all those things. But she said it was almost word for word out of the book what Ramtha told the people. So she did get a hold of books from people. Somebody would have to give them to her, but because I don't know whether maybe she I don't know whether there's a lot of shopping online in those days. There really wasn't. So somehow she had to get them. And it had to be people bringing them to her to tell her about quantum physics and all those things.
Right. Glenn, I've got a question regarding a lot of the feedback that comes out of R.S.E is funneled through Steve Klein, and so many letters to the editor, and his big theme that I pick up on is that the city of Yelm, the city fathers, are pretty much a closed group, back pocket people, almost working, what's the term, coercively together to control, the situation, and it's a very bleak, dark picture of the kind of people that are running Yelm.
Yeah.
What's your comment about that? Well, what kind of people you work with, and how do you see that approach or that attitude?
Well, when I was on city council, we had, people that were around Yelm their whole life, and generally their only concern is Yelm. There's nobody that can control anybody else on the council. There's 7 people that sit there, and there's 4 of them that are people that one of them works for the phone company, one works for the state, one's retired, 2 are retired. One used to be an editor of the newspaper. So they all have their own mind. They all have no hidden agenda. Their concern is to save money for the town of Yelm and to keep progress going. There's no backdoor deals. You look at all the records that come out of the city council, and then the other councilmen are John Thompson and Mike that works at the library. He's kind of sympathetic towards the school, and John has no take one way or the other on it. And Pat Federley, she's a tax person here, so nobody has an agenda to get the school out or to run things the way they see fit. First of all, you have so many state mandates. You got the county, you got the state, you got the federal government, you got hundreds of people watching what you do in your city. You've got auditors that come in and check all the money. There's never any money that goes anywhere. It is just not run that way. We have an elected council and an elected mayor, and the council actually tells the mayor what to do. The mayor can't tell the council, well, we should do this or that. I've seen him try, and the council just looks at him and goes, nope, we're going to do it this way. So, and I got it, genuinely, all of them are there for the betterment of the town and the citizens. They do a great job. It's fantastic, and we have a great staff in this city that does a lot of things.
That's good to hear, because it's very easy to buy into this good old boys network.
Yeah.
And really, what I see is it's exactly what J.Z. Knight's organisation is about. It's a closed system. It's a dictatorship.
Right.
You don't get any kind of voting rights there. So it's interesting they'll accuse the city of being, the old boys undemocratic. But
every meeting, everything that they talk about is all public information. You can get it. You can even get packets sent to your house if you want to know what the city council is going to talk about. You can get packets to your house that will tell you everything they're going to talk about at their next meetings. And all those guys go to different, from the emergency to sanitation to transportation. There's guys, city councilmen, that go to different meetings during the month and come back and report to the city about what's going on outside of our city. We have a very
checks and balances.
Checks and balances, yeah, exactly.
And
because we had more voters than ever register and vote against him, I think he's a little bit miffed about that. We've never had more than 500 people vote. Well, there was over 1,000 that voted the time when he ran, and he lost by 80%.
80%.
Yes. He got 20% of the vote.
But Ramtha said he was going to win.
Well, Ramtha sometimes just doesn't hit it. I would like people to figure out how many times Ramtha's been right in the last 25 years. And I think they'll come up with 0. I don't know of any predictions that were ever true. I heard it was going to be all over in 1997.
I guess that's a pretty good place to start for anyone that would be interested in the organisation or considering leaving, is to assess all of the predictions And I guess, when I've tallied it up, if we really look honestly, try to have that information come out so people can actually have a look at the success rate.
Right.
For instance, all the investments, the kind of people that have come through town to do business,
Right.
that have failed. So how many failures versus successes? And you're suggesting that there's way more failures than success.
Yeah, 86, we had a guy come through here that was going to pull energy out of the ground. He went out to one of these guys' place and he put rebar in the ground and copper wires everywhere, and people wrote him checks, $10 a share. He got all those checks and was gone. Never saw him again.
Yeah.
So, and it's happened. You had the airplane game, you had the rocket game. They were just pyramid schemes. You've had Omega, you've had so many things. And I had a guy, he called me up 2 years ago, and he said, 15 years ago I bought gold. Ramtha told me to buy gold. And he said, I bought gold. And he said, after 15 years, it's back up to the price that I bought it at. And then, of course, it went up from there. But he said, if I'd have bought microwaves or software, he said, I'd have $300,000 right now.
I hear you on that one.
Yeah.
Question about a fellow called Joe Summerall.
Right.
He was murdered, probably I think it was 91, an R.S.E. member. And I remember the police chief coming to the ranch and asking for information. And at that time, Jay-Z advised us all to get dogs and guns. And somebody stood up and said, well, how about we do remote view and dancing? And he was shot down straight away as, that would get yourself some protection. So question is, did you know Joe Summerall? And do you know anything about what that time, what may have happened to him?
No, I did see him there. I met him once, but we hardly talked. It was just fleeting, and I did read his little book, which was pretty clever.
Yeah.
He had some good stuff in it. But I did talk to deputies afterwards, and they were pretty sure they knew who did it, but they could never prove it. And it's gone on all this time without being proven.
Yeah. Okay, another question. Did you have any interaction with Jay-Z Knight's children? For instance, I was told by someone who dated one of Knight's boys how he would laugh at the suckers who gave his mother their money.
Well, I never saw one of them laugh, but I did have one of them working for me, and we were having a beer after work one night and sitting around the table. And I said, well, what do you want out of life? And he says, 2.3 kids and just go to school and be happy. And I said, hold it now. You have this teacher that is teaching people how to live forever and to ascend and do all that stuff. And he says, well, if you want to believe that, you can. But he says, I'm going to have 2.3 kids and live my life out just like everybody else. And I went, that really opened my eyes. So here's the kid, that is basically telling me that, his mom's a fake. And there was 6 of us around the table that heard that. And I think I'm the only one that really heard it.
Yeah. The boys, they still around? Are they still in the Yelm area?
As far as I know, they are. I haven't seen either one of them in years. And they were teenagers at that time. So now they've grown up, they're close to 40 probably.
Yeah.
Or 40, really, over 40.
Really
yeah.
Amazing, huh? Time flies.
Yeah.
Similar question, what type of relationship does Judith have with her grandchildren, their wives, Jay-Z's own grandchildren? What about Judith's mother, brothers, sisters? Have any of them attended her events? Did any of them ever visit?
I met her mother. Her mother came once, and it was pretty funny. We were down on the back porch. I was talking to Helen, and we were waiting for Ramtha to come down. And I said, that poor cotton-picking girl. And she said, what? And I said, well, in her book, she talks about picking cotton in New Mexico. And she says, oh, my God, she picked cotton one afternoon for about an hour and got hot and went and laid down in the car and took a nap. Never did it again. And I said, oh, little prima donna. And she goes, oh, yes, you could not get her to do anything, And I just kind of laughed because here's Helen smoking a cigarette and telling me about her daughter. I got to assume that it was the truth. you know. But I got a real kick out of that. I laughed quite a bit because Helen she was crusty. She was great. She was elderly at that time, but she was pretty sharp.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
oh, she's using that story, huh? That was funny.
Oh, God. Yeah. Glenn, there's often people tell me personally that they know it's not Jay-Z pretending to be Ramtha. They know it's Ramtha because they've seen the physical changes, either in the eyes, the size of the body, even Jay-Z's night strength. One of the points that a friend of mine brought up, an herb called belladonna. It's where it comes from. I believe it's Italian for beautiful eyes or beautiful woman.
Mm-hmm.
And the belladonna eye drops actually dilute the pupils, make them very black and deep. That's one way that you can change the eye appearance. But do you know of any changes? Have you seen anything extraordinary in the differences? And
never did. Never saw any. And if there was any eye drops going in, it had to be way before. And I just know that her pupils were always kind of wide, but never saw any size change in her feet. I heard her feet got bigger and shoes got tighter and all that stuff. Well, never saw any of that. Never saw anything happen that way. So in coming or going. So I don't know. It's just a fable that has gone on and makes people believe.
Sure. You never saw Ramtha with extraordinary metaphysics, like extraordinary strength, like this supernatural strength?
No. Never. But she does work out on her treadmill, or did work out on a treadmill, so she had great legs, man. She could pump those things and really walk fast. So that was a good workout for her. So.
But you must have been impressed by the road show that was put on when you were walking around as a bodyguard. Did that at that time?
Never saw anything extraordinary, her do anything of strength or anything. Nothing. No changes in anything.
What about psychic tuning into somebody and giving some psychic message?
Well, I told you the story about the two little ladies and how they was completely wrong about those two. And I used to think, before I became the bodyguard, I used to think horrible thoughts, and Ramtha would walk up to me and I go, you're phony, and that'd be running through my mind, and Ramtha would stop and tell me what a wonderful master I was. And I went,
So much reading your mind.
So much for looking at my aura and reading my mind and seeing if there's a rip in it anywhere, and all those things. I just realized that doesn't happen. I know everybody has an aura about them. They got Curlian photography where they can take a picture of your aura, but almost everybody has the same aura, and there's no holes in them. There's no different colors. We're all the same.
An EMF poster called Little Wise One. She told a story about walking up to Ramtha to ask a question, and she looked so intent because she was a little afraid to ask Ramtha a question, and kind of walked up to her and then saw Ramtha backing away and saw fear in Ramtha's eyes and realized, oh my God, Ramtha thinks I'm going to attack him. And that was her wake-up call, in a way, part of her wake-up call. Have you ever seen Jay-Z as Ramtha been afraid or startled by something?
No, because I was always there. Nothing ever happened that I didn't stop from happening. So there was never a reason that I ever saw where she needed to be startled or afraid of anything, So
nobody got past you at any time?
No, not unless I'd stop them, and then Ramtha would give me the signal whether they could come closer and ask their question or not. Right. And then or I'd just turn them away. I was out in the field one time where I'm watching Ramtha, and people have their masks on, and they're just chugging back and forth in the field. And this is before we started putting the cards on the fence. And so there was a lamppost out there, it was 8 inches around. And this woman, I saw her coming, boy, and she was just a chugging, boy, coming right at it. And so I didn't have time to reach out, so I just stepped in front of her, and she smacked into my chest. And I grabbed her before she fell over, and I said, I'm sorry, I had to stop you from hitting the pole. And she goes, next time, let me hit the pole. So I didn't mean to hurt her, but she was chugging along there, and then Ramtha kind of snickered about that, too. So I told you that my game was to try to get Ramtha to laugh a lot, so whenever I could do that, but she'd always turn her head and keep it down if I said something pretty clever.
Yeah.
So it was fun, but I knew what I'd get to her.
When I was attending the event, there were evenings called manifesting evenings.
Yes.
Where Ramtha would be, we were told, manifesting money out of nothing and drop it into people's laps. Well, my visualization was there was these $100 bills floating down, and then they would take their blinders off and they would see a pile of money in front of them. Nobody ever told me what the facts were, what was going on back then. But what I've heard since then is that selected people, like similar to grooming people for the tank and so on in the tank. What do you know of that time? Because you were walking around with
I was
Jay-Z
there the first manifesting evening, and what happened was the take for that night was something like $17,000, I think. Might have been less. That's what sticks in my mind. And we just had 100 stacks of $100 bills, and I'm walking around with Ramtha, and Jeannie is behind us carrying the money. And Ramtha's going around pointing at people and holding up fingers about how many to give people.
Oh, so Jeannie's passing the money to
passing
Jay-Z
the money,
Ramtha,
passing the money down to the people, putting it right in their laps, right in front of them.
They're doing C&E, blinders on.
Yeah,
they don't
even know what's going on. They're all screaming and yelling and doing their C&E, and the music is just blaring, and Ramtha's talking and walking, and most of the time I can't hear what Ramtha's saying because the music is so loud, and I've got a radio on and everything else. It was really disconcerting to hear. Then once in a while I'd stop and I'd be able to watch her lips move and understand what she was saying, about manifesting and wanting and changing and all the things that you do. And then we decided that it was too risky to leave thousands of dollars. Everybody got $1,000 that night, and mostly it was a rock crew, the people that work for her out there in the rock
really?
crew. Yeah. So then there would be another manifesting night, and we put $1,000 in envelopes. And Joe had heard about this woman that was splitting her own shingles for her house, and just what she was doing, and marvelous. And so we walked around and give, envelopes to the more rock crew and people she knew at different areas, and knowing full well this money was going to come back at the next
the rock
intensive.
Crew, can you describe
that was people that worked out in the garden. We called them the rock crew because all they did was go out in the garden and on the grounds before all the trees were planted and dig up rocks.
Mm-hmm.
We have McKenna pea gravel in Yelm it's rocks from this big to this big. And as you. I'm sure that the elevation in her place went down at least 3 feet for all the rocks they picked up there.
Look at the old videos.
Yeah.
It's a sea of, it's like it's just a strewn of rocks everywhere.
Yeah.
I swear the rock work, remember the rock work pushing that thing? She
Yeah.
got people to pick up rocks for that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So anyway, most of those people, the rock crew and staff, got money. And this night we're walking around there, and so Ramtha. We'd gone through there 3 or 4 times and said, he finally pointed at this woman and said, "Who is that?" And I told him the name. And he
why didn't Ramtha know the person?
I don't know.
Well, that's a bit.
That's
who
a
is
little
that?
mystery there that Glenn has to tell Ramtha who that person is. So, went like that. 3. So, 3,000. 3,000 put down there, right, just like that. We walked around and distributed thousands more to different people.
I was there. Wait a minute. I was there. Why didn't you?
David,
David.
I'm telling you that I saw people getting money that didn't need the money, and I saw people that needed money desperately just to live that never got a penny. And it's kind of surprising how maybe their auras were so enlightened and full that Ramtha knew they didn't really need the money. They could go ahead and starve to death.
We needed the test.
Yeah, it was a test. So it was a test to you also. So anyway, after
you owe me, Glenn.
I do owe you money. I know. So anyway, after we walked around, I think we have 4 envelopes left. And we had walked around, couldn't find anybody else poor enough to have these envelopes. So we walked back over to that same person and just gave all the rest of them to her. So she ended up with $7,000 that night. And I know she had $40,000 worth of gold buried in her yard.
And I was living on somebody's garage floor.
Yeah.
You know, working for $6 an hour.
Yeah.
Building somebody's underground
Yeah.
bunker. Oh,
So,
okay.
see, that's what I'm talking about. Is I'm pretty sure that maybe I should have not said who she was, but anyway, her life became a little more fuller, and she was able to afford probably 2 years more of intensives.
Do you remember her name?
Yes, I do. So I will tell you off camera.
I wanted to give her a call. See, where's that gold buried? You know?
Yeah, I know. I don't even know whether she's still around. I haven't seen her for years. I think she may have. God, $7,000. I'm out of here. So could have been.
Yeah.
So and time after time, I saw people that I knew that were so destitute. But again, the rock crew. One of the several of those nights they would then we had $1,000 ended up. A guy said he didn't get it. Well, we know he got it, but he said he didn't, so we gave him another 1,000. So
what do you think happened?
Oh, I think he just stuck it in his knapsack, and we went out there. I would go back out in the crowd and I'd say, "You get your envelope?" And he goes, "I didn't get an envelope," and I knew he was lying. Went back and anyway he got another 1,000. So from that point on, we would put a marker, a tag in the envelope, and then we would keep the money in the office, and at the end of the event, they had to come up to the office and get the cash.
Oh, smart.
Yeah, so that kept people from stealing anything.
And then people stole things at events?
Oh, yeah. I know this guy, he got 2,000, didn't deserve it. It's a long story. It's another guy that ended up ripping her off pretty well. So anyway, I'll tell you that off camera also. So there's been a lot of dishonest, enlightened students in this school. So anyway, they would come up, get their cash, and turn around to Vicky or somebody and here, I want to buy the essay or the next intensive. So just turn it right back over to JC. So it happens.
It's smart,
all the time.
And also it's getting the other students
something to
customers
come
to believe that Ramtha, the all-powerful Ramtha, is manifesting money out of nothing. Because we've all got our blinders on.
Yeah, you don't know.
We're clueless to how it's operating.
Yeah.
Okay, here's another question. This is actually from G to G. In the 80s, at the end of the intensive, everyone would be given a glass of wine. Jay-Z made a point of how she didn't drink or like wine. Ramtha would chug-a-lug the large glass of wine, clearly by two paths. That's that video set. And clearly by her behaviour, Jay-Z is an alcoholic, at least in personality, if not in excessive drinking. When asked in the interview, Red Wine, you, Glenn, spoke of fine wines at holidays. Did you see Jay-Z drinking alcohol during the years of your employment? Do you have a clue as to what prompted the wine ceremonies? So a bunch of questions there, I guess.
The way I heard the wine ceremony, I saw Jay-Z drink wine. She would never get drunk. She would have Christmas parties and stuff and was always in control and wanted us all to sit around and sing Christmas carols and have that old-fashioned type of Christmas. So there wasn't a lot of boozing going on. So, and the way I understood it, James Flick was the one that told her about how red wine will open up your brain and make it work. We used to just do that goodbye glass of wine at the end of several intensives. They didn't last very long because it cost too much for her to buy the wine. So
there was wine in 85?
86, 87, and it stopped immediately. I heard it. The conversation I heard was, no, that's too expensive. We're not going to do that anymore. And that was said to Vicky Katie. So then, and Vicky was quite, she's personal assistant, secretary at that time for JC, and was one of her ex-sister-in-laws. So, the wine ceremonies, I understand, was told that the red wine, and besides that, when you have that many people and they're getting a little bored, you have to do something to keep them interested and to keep them going. And that's one of the things that'll do it. A little relaxation and booze will make you do things you never thought you would.
Okay, another question from G to G. It's relevant to G to G, so I'll ask it. Was Jay-Z Knight a cigarette smoker
Oh yeah,
during your time?
yeah. She smoked Merit cigarettes. When she would come back into the body, I would light the cigarette and Jeannie would go get the coffee, or the other way around. So we always had coffee and cigarettes when it was all over.
There's a story from a desert retreat of Ramtha marching everybody out into the desert, suddenly stepping aside as Jay-Z having a cigarette and then resuming being Ramtha. Have you witnessed any similar situations?
No. I told a story about 14 hours or 12 hours up on the top of the tank when she started becoming Jay-Z more and more in her mannerisms and all that stuff. So or I said he started becoming Jay-Z. So I've heard that story about the desert, and it was always disputed and said it was a lie.
Quite a heavy question here, because there has been events during wine ceremonies, the true ceremonies, where R.S.E members have been physically struck by Ramtha, to get them to admit to some kind of, misdeed, confession. Have you witnessed any physical assault by Ramtha on staff members towards students? For instance, it was during my time, if somebody was doing C&E next to you and they were falling asleep, you could be quite physical in bringing them back and waking them up.
I never witnessed anything like that while I was there. Never saw it.
Okay, and there was what they call X-Talk, X-rated sexual topics, including details of Jay-Z and James' personal sex life. How she gave him his first blowjob. I may not include this in the interview. I'm just going to let it run. To his shock and surprise, she also had her first orgasm with James. Did the children need to know about this? Did anyone need to know? Ramtha swears for hours and hours on end, extremely vulgar talk, threatening talk, all in front of children. A number of children have picked up that kind of talk and speak for themselves. This is all new to you, this kind of behavior?
I've had two people tell me that they got physically sick at that particular event and could not believe what they were hearing. And one of them quit, and the other one quit shortly, about a year after that. So I know that it had an effect on some of them. And one of them told me directly what she said and how she said it, and she said it was very unnecessary and very vulgar.
There's a statement more than a question. Why did Ramtha punch that woman repeatedly? Apparently they personally witnessed a woman being punched in the stomach to elicit a confession from her that she was taking drugs to curb her appetite. There's a disease. What's that disease called when you want to be
anorexia?
Anorexia.
Yeah.
Does this ring a bell to you? Any of this
Not
information?
At all. Never heard that story. Never saw it either.
Okay, we're moving on to a recent court case with Jay-Z Knight challenging White Wind Weaver.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much information you know what took place there, but during a cross-examination by the attorney for White Wind Weaver, his name's Mr. Kilborn, he asked Jay-Z if she'd ever channeled Jesus, and she said no. And I want to read you the transcripts and get some feedback from you. I think it's one thing we want to do is get this on tape, on record, so that present R.S.E members, former, can understand, what was said in that courtroom under oath, and just get your feedback on it. Okay, the question by Mr. Kilborn was, Ramtha indicated to you that he had communicated with Jesus. Is that correct? Answer, Jay-Z Knight, I don't recall that. Mr. Kilborn, okay, have you had any involvement or out-of-body experiences where you have channeled with others other than Ramtha? Jay-Z Knight: no. One particular play I was asked to be a character in, I chose to be that character. Mr. Kilbourne: okay. And I suppose then, if I was to ask you if you have ever channeled with Jesus, your answer would be no then as well. Jay-Z Knight: that is correct.
I don't want to speculate on that.
Right.
Because she could be actually telling the truth on that.
Well, my view of this is actually she is telling the truth. She's not committing perjury in the courtroom because she's saying, no, I never did channel Jesus.
Right.
Because on the advertisements on the tapes, it's Jay-Z Knight channeling Jesus. It doesn't say Ramtha channeling Jesus.
Oh, really? Okay.
It's Jay-Z Knight's
yeah.
channeling Jesus. And so what the question for me is, if she's not committing perjury, then she is actually committing fraud. She's admitting to fraud. That
right.
She never did channel Jesus, yet she's made tapes available for sale of her channeling Jesus. And I just think it's good to get that on record, because she's sworn on oath that she never channeled Jesus. No,
Okay, and she's selling a tape that way. Okay.